Okay. Random stream. No particular timeline. So just recording this so it's if it turns out to be helpful, I've got it to look back on. So starting to question the Akka thing a lot. Because finding resources on this is starting to become really frustrating. I need to learn some things. If we do console.writeline, let's do this. Let's do console extensions. Static. Consoles are static. I can't do this kind of void write debug this. You can't do this console because it's already static. Hi, undeclared. How you doing? What's this going to be on? This object string message. Good to hear it. How's your weekend been? Get anything productive done? So what I need to do here is, yeah, that's what I want to do. Console.foreground color equals gray. Got a friend to do copywriting for my website. He's doing an incredible job, so I'm really happy. Something I struggle on. So putting content together is not easy. Debug message public static void write info this object string message console foreground color equals dot green. It's a great weekend. Nice. Once you understand how, but until you totally do, it's like a shot in the dark. It makes sense. That makes sense. Right error. Okay, let's do that. I just want to write. I just want to put some information out, and I don't want to do this. What I'm trying to do is understand, because I keep seeing that these messages are queued, but I don't think they are queued in the way that I think they are queued. So I want to kind of get a handle on, right. What should I call them then? Yeah. So this dot write debug, write info, received datetime dot UTC now. Long time. Okay, so that's info. Exists. Updating. Does not exist. Creating. Okay, so what I'm trying to get a handle on here is there a is there actually an order to these messages, or am I? Are they just totally randomly processed? I think they're totally randomly processed, or rather, they're pulled out of Kafka and processed almost immediately. And I think that's going to matter very much to my processing, because if I wanna scale this out, I've got to get um, I've got to get that throughput, and I've got to understand um, I've got to understand how these are handled. So if I have to put some sort of crazy system in place here, am I really making the application any better? Right. So what I've done there is I've just reset the topic, so I'll receive messages. So when I run the hosting demo now, right, there we go. Okay, so we got info messages, received, 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 received. So we received the 3 messages. Then we got the does not exist. Or rather, we got the 5 messages, does not exist. Then we received another one. So I think it creates an instance per. And then we get into planning item stuff. But then these messages all went. It's like it. It's like it received the initial batch and then it kind of settled down. But either way, we can't guarantee anything. Because here, these 3 get triggered as creates. So persistence persistence isn't going to help me here. Because it spools up all 3 in one go. Or all it spools. I keep saying 3 because I've got 3 different actors here, but it spools the actors up. So what I'm trying to learn is, right, so I've been asking Gemini, right, okay, well, how do I ensure I don't process a message for the same entity while one is being processed? And you can do stateful mutex or Akka persistence. But I'm wondering if I'm thinking about this in the incorrect way, right? Because I'm pushing it. Generally, when something feels difficult, it's because you're pushing against the way it's meant to be done. I think that when it's got a decent enough API, and I think this does have a decent enough API, that I'm probably not using this the way that it is best used. So persistence would be necessary anyway, but I think that what's happening is I am not okay. About to get some thunderstorm, so if my stream goes off, we know why. Persistence would be good anyway because then I could continue processing messages, right? If the system crashes or whatever, I do want to persist anyway. But what I'm struggling with is there's not a lot of examples out there, and that worries me. So persistence wise, they have event sourcing. atomic rights. Again, there's a lot to kind of process through. Persistent, a finite state machine. But again, we're not using any correlating IDs here, so I'm not sure why this would. I'm not sure how this would necessarily work either. So one way would be to pass a state object in of the entity. So instead of having just a straight entry point, right? So my receiver just calls process. So instead of doing it this way, what I do is I create a state object here for that entity, and then I should be able to look that up. So I wonder if I can correlate by a persistent FSM. I'm not. I don't want to try and introduce. I'm not changing the state of the object, so I'm not treating this like it is a. I'm not going to get the different events, right? I'm not calculating these, so I'm not treating it like a domain object. Implement the string identifier, but this is required in order to simplify the serialization of FSM states. String. So, but I could treat the FSM as let's see if we can do it. So let's create a state object. State. And this is a planning item. State. So this is going to have an if SM state. So that's persistence. So if SM state. That's quite interesting that it have. That's quite the design. So let's call this a planning item integration event, right? Event. That is event dot event. Identifier to string. No, it's a GUID, but yeah. What we could do there is planning items. It will read easier that way anyway. So it has an identifier and it has public. Interesting. Trying to think about I need to see an FSM example here. So but I don't have events to play with here, do I? I'm just trying to avoid having the same message be or subsequent update messages be confused. One of my ideas was what happens if I basically say, okay, just wait 30 seconds from the last event, right? So once you stop receiving events for that entity, take the kind of collate the list of events that you've got and process them all as one set of changes. So basically you say, okay, go and get the first one and go and get the last one, right? And order them by updated. Everything in between doesn't matter, right? Or it could do. You could actually go A to B to C to D to E and produce all the events that happened in between as actual distinct events. But we'll have to collate them, right? Um, but in this event, in this instance, as it stands right this second, okay, so that's not going to do what I wanted to do because it's not really doing the correlation in the same way. But in this that I have now, I receive the events all at the same time. Um, so persistence is something I'm going to have to deal with. But how do I design basics and working with files? So streams would make sense because that's what I've got, right? Um, reactive tweets, transforming and consuming simple streams. Right. A typical use, so introduction. The way we consume services from the internet today, reactive streams, uh, we're not producing a stream here, right? We're not consuming a stream. We don't know whether we're consuming 1 or 100 events for that entity. So streams might not be it. The inbox is not anything to, I mean, it's just receiving. Um, would have something like PubSub maybe that would be the appropriate. Would it be? When writing code outside of actors which shall communicate with actors, the acts pattern can be a solution, but there are two things it cannot do: receiving multiple replies and watching others' life cycles. Um, you might not be far off there. That might work. So again, the challenge is here, right? Okay, so I've been thinking about this all day, right? So this is driving me crazy. I have change events. So when I update a planning item or I update a note or I update an attachment, etc., I publish an integration event of the planning item. So I'm telling the world, the larger system, uh, did you ever read the There Is No Thread article? Doesn't sound familiar. How you doing? Not me, don't worry. Welcome in. Um, hey Modex, how you doing? Um, no thread, don't worry. No, read There Is No Thread. Stephen Cleary, okay. Let me move that off screen. It's just right one. What happened with the cool pixel art cassettes? Full pixel art cassettes. Oh, the async article. Go to channel point image. Channel point image. My game saves have always been the floppy disk. I don't really know what you're doing, but if it's C sharp, it's worth the read. Yeah. What I'm playing with right now is I'm trying to process events coming out of my application, right? So over the last 9 months, is this running? No, it's not running. That's why. So try that again. So I have an application. It will run. I'll take a look at that. There is no thread though. I know who Stephen Cleary is, but I haven't seen that article specifically. Come on. Takes a while because there's nine services to start up there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, assuming this is going to load at some point, there we go. So the application loads, right? And I make a change. So I go in here and I make a change. That triggers an event. Right now planning item, right? So if I attach something, or if I had a requirement, all right, if I had a requirement, or if I change the projects that this is associated with, right? So when I navigate away, that will tell me, yep, I did that. So that's updated that. That will now fire an event into my planning items, right? Because it will tell the system, the larger system, oh, by the way, a new event occurred, right? So eventually that will go through and it will trigger that event, and that would appear in here. So they go into Kafka, right? So I use Kafka as, I don't use Kafka as a here's what changed. I'm basically just publishing, oh, by the way, this object now looks like this, and that integration event is just a here's the current public state of of this object. Is it normal to have a bug, know what the bug is, but don't know how to fix it? I mean, yeah, I've been there before. Where you yeah. Um, so um yeah, if we click on this one and we assign this, right? This will create an event. But this is pulling out to data, this means it's gone to the server. So what that does is when it identifies the change on the server in the API, it then says, oh, this object changed, and it publishes an integration event. That integration event is the current state of the planning item. The reason I'm doing it that way is so that I don't have to put the load of figuring out what changed and how it changed on every single object in line in that request, right? So this API is literally save the data, make sure I've persisted it, fire off the integration event so that other parts of the system can worry about those concerns. Right now, this piece listens to that event and updates the GraphQL database, SQL database back here, and now has its own copy of the data. So I can build my view, right? So GraphQL pulls all the information together and I get the view. I'm going to use the same integration event to consume changes. But the problem I have is how do I effectively do that and get the processing to be parallelized so that I can actually process a lot of events quickly. If I continue to use Kafka for this component specifically, I can achieve this, but to get higher throughput, I have to increase the number of running services, which is a challenge. So my thought is to use Akka. That's what I was looking at yesterday, and I'm still kind of struggling with on the design today. The problem that I'm currently struggling with is this is the event that just came out, right? This is what just changed 2 minutes ago when I updated the other thing, right? This event comes. If my Akka process is not running because it's brought down for maintenance or something, I might get 10 or 15 entries for the same object. Because of Akka's parallel processing abilities, what will happen is I will process. I was going to reset this for a second. I will process both messages in almost immediate succession, and if the actor for the first message finishes first or the second message finishes first, depending on which one does, I could then produce events that are incorrect because I don't know whether the item's been created. I might create it twice. I'm going to collide. So what I'm looking to learn is there a way of correlating messages so that I know that, oh, a message is in flight for this. Hey there, Raven, how's it going? How's things? Never heard of either. Yeah, so for this platform, I'm using quite a lot of different technologies right now. So the um, the overall design of the system, and again, people may or may not care. The overall design of the system looks something like this, right? The client, which is this, sends commands through the API gateway. Those commands are processed in the relevant APIs. So these are all different APIs running. So the gateway makes them transparent. So to the client, there's just one API. So it smooths that footprint out. Each system is responsible for storing its data and then producing the events that tell the larger system, here's the current state of my data. Right now, what happens is this GraphQL database down here is consuming all these events and building out its own database, which looks like a flattened version of all these four databases together right now, but it doesn't need to be, and then provides a GraphQL API so the client can query GraphQL through the same gateway. So to the client, there's one API, and it serves many purposes. The benefits of doing it this way, I have quick and pertinent storage of the data that I need, right? There is no worrying about, oh, did it get the data? Because I write, and there's very little in between. There's not a lot of business logic in between there as to what I need to do next. The rest of the system is figuring out if there's any reactions to that data. There may be rules and stuff in the long term, whether I can save something or not. there might be triggering things internally to calculate things, but there's not going to be a great deal of processing, any reporting or alerting, etc. I'm breaking out of there. And that's what I'm kind of focused on right now. It's taking these same events that currently make up the view and pulling them that way. And that's what this is. So what I've been working on is using Akka. So Akka is an actor. It uses the actor pattern, actor model, sorry, and it's a library set around built for distributed concurrent systems. So it's built to deal with the idea of processing a lot of information in parallel, right? It scales well. It does all it needs. So if I have a very busy system on the application, let's say I have hundreds of users using the system and they're making changes, adding content, etc. The amount of messages flying through that other system, flying through Kafka and ultimately through here, is going to be quite extensive. And I want to figure out, okay, what changed so that I can publish the right notifications. So step one of this is figuring out what changed in that object. So Akka does seem like a feasible solution, if a little bit challenging from a development perspective. Because what I need to do here is I might receive the planning item integration event 10 times. Now from Kafka, I'm guaranteed they'll be received in order that they were done in, because Kafka will place them in the same topic, being that I've given them the same ID. It'll place them in the same topic, not the same partition, not the same topic. They'll be in the same topic because I published them there. So, but the problem is that Akka is kind of fire and forget. So this planning item receiver here is the entry point for Kafka into this application. What it will do is it will immediately go and get me an actor using this path, and then it'll tell that actor, here you go, here's the thing you need to worry about. And that's it. That actually fire and forget. So now this task completed task tells the Kafka component, yep, I'm good. I got this message. And that confirms that and lets Kafka move on. If I take that away and I wait on this, it defeats the point, because then I'd have to scale out these services to get more throughput on the Kafka piece, because again, until I confirm, Kafka won't actually move on. So unless I commit a message, it won't move on to the next one. So the idea here is get it out of the system, confirm it, and move on. So there's no benefit in trying to make this wait, because then I just destroy destroy the ability for this to process. In the past, what I've done is I've processed those events out into their own database here, and then had a process running that is fired and said, oh, now check to see if it's busy or whatever. But that feels wrong. So the reason I'm streaming this evening, the reason I'm doing this and kind of muddling around with this, is because I think it's something that is worth recording in terms of the design, the learning I'm going to go through, and just trying to share that kind of brainstorming piece of the software development process, because I don't have all the answers here. This distributed computing, I'm comfortable with the concepts of. I just need to get better at using them. So I need to learn more tools. So undeclared had mentioned earlier pub sub. So pub sub might be it could be something where I can post into something else and then use the internal components of Akka. I just got to figure out whether that's possible. Akka delivery. Okay, that's reliable message delivery under actors. Okay. I suppose another way of putting this would be to say debounce, right? I could say debounce the number of the events. What I've been struggling with is really the demonstrations of some of these things are ridiculous. So, finite state, fault tolerance, let's see, Akka, debounce messages, same ID. I have to be careful as well. I don't say Akka because Akka.net is the actual library I'm using. Dealing with duplicate messages. I apologize for the bright white screen. I can't help that. To correctly deduplicate messages, the deduplicating receive actor must be able to reliably do the following: uniquely identify every message per sender, track of which messages have already been processed and which ones have not, persist the tracking state so the actor can pick up where it left off in the event of a crash, deal with the sticky problem of the sending actor moving to a new location in the network. In other words, the I actor refer the actor who delivered the message. I confirmable. Okay. Persistence ID of an I confirmable. So but this isn't the thing is this isn't deduplication necessarily. This is um dealing with it's not deduplication because these events are actually in distinct events, right? I just need to make sure that I get the changes in the right order. And it's not necessarily event sourcing, I suppose, but it could be considered event sourcing. Persistent actor, untyped persistent actor, update state. I hate the shortening of this. So a persistent actor that mutated the state in between would actually be valid, but I need to know the dates that things were happening in, right? Faced with local consistency requirements and high throughput demands, sometimes untyped persistent actor and it persists may not be enough in terms of consuming incoming commands at a higher rate because it has to wait until all events related to a given command are processed in order to start processing the next command. The event callbacks may be called at any time, even after the next command has been processed. Deferring actions until proceeding persist. Nested persist calls. See that's not. So what does persist do? That's the question. Because it's not dealing with the if message is string C, we don't persist, right? So I'm not getting anything from that. Like, the example is hard to follow. Let's have a look. Let's see if it gives me more. Akka persistence supports event sourcing with on-type persistent outlet. An actor that extends this class uses the persist method to persist and handle events. The behavior at on-type is defined by implementing on recover and on command. Right, but where's on command get fired? Right? Like, there's no example of using this. Akka.net demo. Example projects. IoT. That could be the closest. Stock trading. My concern is being able to source, trade, processor, actors, ask at actor, receive, but hey Ryan, how you doing? Good evening. How's things? Receive, persistent actor. You good? Nice. Uh, static props for props.create. Save snapshot, trade, subscribe, trade unsubscribe, terminated. But this is dealing with the system kind of telling it what to do. So I suppose I'm a little bit off on this one. So again, what I'm trying to do is say, okay, well, I have a thing. Maybe I need to persist it first. I don't know. So how much am I committing time and mental power to this solution? That's what I'm just trying to consider. Do I think it's right? I think it could give me exactly what I need in terms of I will not have to worry about throughput. Right now, I can run one service, and that service will more than happily keep up with the events of one person creating things. But if a second person was to come in and start changing data, I feel that it would happily deal with that as well. If the service was down and then came back up, that's kind of the scenario I'm testing right now. It doesn't matter who changes data, by the way. Um, which is actually information I don't currently have, which is interesting. Um, I'm going to have to figure that out later. I need to put that in. But anyway, every other solution I can think of is very single threaded. There's no, and no matter which way I go at it, I'd have to solve this problem. So if I was to go with Kafka, right, the only way I get throughput is if I scale up the um, partitions and run more copies of the service. Akka will give me that out of the box, the scale out. And I can add more items into the cluster to get more throughput later on. So I do have a lot more scaling potential. So what other options do I have? Well, I could. I don't want to put this responsibility into the primary database because I think that's adding too much responsibility into the primary database. So the actual data store stores the record in its current state. I publish the integration events so that I can actually react to those things. So it shouldn't matter to the primary data store. The primary data store is just, yep, I'm saving data. I'm good. Um, I guess contract. Let's try and represent this a little bit differently. So right now I'm just passing the integration event straight through, right? So let's think about this in a different way. Let's go break things, right? Let's do um, receive integration event. Let's make that a record T event, T event, event. I integration event. Um, I've got a really bad feeling that this basically is what I've got to do is kind of figure out the Akka way of doing this. And I'm kind of going to think through this workflow a little bit more detailed than quite as simple as a few ifs. Um, persistence event sourcing, sorry. Again, um, a persistent actor takes a state. persistent actor does have a persistence ID. The problem is that that state let's have a look and see what let's do this. Receive actor. So what this is going to be is an untyped persistent actor. Let's see what you need to do. Okay. Now, sample ID 1. Let's create a state. State. Integration event state. So let's go with that for right now. Does it need to be of this particular class? It doesn't look like it. Updated events to add event.data. So private, read only, immutable list of T event, where T event, integration events. So my thought there is if this state actually can track the events that come in, then we might be okay. So what we do is we receive, and then at some point we do a timer and stop listening and take the current state and process the state. So that's what I'm going to try and focus on in a second. Convert into primary constructor, that's fine. Nope, that's not what I want. I'm going to move this off screen so I don't keep flicking back and forth. So I apologize if that was irritating. And again, if you're curious as to what I'm doing, please feel free to ask. If you have any ideas or thoughts, I'm also willing to listen. So that does take it that way. Okay. That's that. Public integration event, integration event state, T event, add event. Oh, because it's immutable. That's why I keep mutating this. I'm creating a new instance because it's immutable. Okay, that does make sense. It's funny. Public int size goes to event start. Let's have a look. I just need to kind of process an event and see what happens, but I don't know. So persistence ID. What is CMD though? That's the problem. CMD is their thing. Okay, so on command, switch message, case, receive, integration event. That's going to be. Wonder if you can do this T event. this may go very badly awry, but let's find out. Received event. That's funny. Persist. But there's no state there. Update state. Update state is... Gotcha. Okay, so that's a new event. So what they're doing there is persist is taking the event and then they're doing update state. An update state here is private void update state, which takes the T event, and then, yeah, private integration event state, T event, state equals state dot update event. Just to line up with their example. Update state there. Message dot event. Okay. Interesting. I think I've got that a little bit weird, but we'll find out in a second. So in here now, this will be broken. We need to set up the receive actor. So registry, register, receive actor. This is going to be interesting. Planning item integration event. System actor of dependency resolver dot for system dot props. That's messy, but we'll we'll go with it. And then what we need is we need the actor of program planning item receive actor. And then we tell it the event. So I think that just stores the current state. And I think we'll end up with multiple events for the same thing if we can figure out this because you can't. I'm wondering if the configuration is incorrect here because I can't initialize the receive actor with that identifier, that persistence ID. Persistence ID command stream data. They're not doing that. No events, state.size. That's not an actual required thing on it. Because, okay, so what I'm thinking here is if it received multiple, then I can receive them and push them into the state for that identity, right? If it can deal with it at persistence ID state level. So I can say, okay, the GUID is a persistence ID, but again, I don't have that persistence ID. If I set it as a constructor, right? GUID identifier, right? Then when I go to claim, because I'm using dependency injection, I don't think I can do that. So I don't think I can give it props here, which is the problem. Wow, my browser just crashed. Okay. Oh, an ad break was playing. That's awesome. It's good to know, Twitch. So I can't give this props. So how do I do that? Actor dot tell. But I don't think I can pass any further props in. And again, right now I'm not seeing where I can react to that change. Um, or am I not meant to? That's the challenge, right? A persistent actor must have an identifier that doesn't change across different actor incarnations. The identifier must be defined with persistence ID. Must be unique to a given entity in the journal. When replaying messages persist in the journal, you query a message with the persistence ID. So if two entities share the same persistence ID, message replaying behavior is corrupted. Right, so I think I need, but again, I don't have any demo of how this is meant to work because my stable persistence ID, I don't, uh, persistence, what, demo. Um, the last, so Pluralsight does have a, and again, this is starting to concern me. Pluralsight has a course on this, but it's from 8 years ago, so that's not ideal. Uh, Akka.NET persistence for SQL Server. Do you have a demo? Using Holcomb, that's not good. Receive persistent actor. So hold on. Receive untyped persistent actor. Receive persistent actor. Strategy manager. So they've got the persistence ID as being that. Actor of. So I think I might be off on this one then. Because I have not. My data is not structured like this. Because this persistence ID is receive integration event ID. But I don't think that's what I want to do. Close that one down for a second. Again, I want to go here. Do you have actual like this? You do. This will crash miserably, pretty much quickly. I think. I just want to see if I can get to that into that endpoint. No. Error while creating planning item integration event. Receive async. New integration event state. Oh, because I didn't do it that way, did I? This should actually be something different. This should be actually doing a new receive integration event. I think it's an integration event. That looks healthier. Set my lag is now reset. Update offsets 183 on that one. So I'm just resetting Kafka so that I can process those events again. It actually did process all 20 something events that it's got in those range. Just 183 is just the offset where it was previously. It'll take a second to wake up, basically. So reasons why I might change up my strategy here is clearly difficult to find good sources for examples for Kafka, for Akka. It seems like a good technology. I just may be misusing it or trying to use it for a process, a path that maybe it wasn't intended for. So that's going to trip me up. That being said, I'm not aware of any other technologies that are necessarily going to make this any easier. Nope, that failed. I will create an actor instance of type receive actor with 0 args. So my receive actor, yeah. See, I can't pass it a GUID in there, right? So that's complaining because I can't do that. The problem is that I think that actually reset consumer groups. Yeah, that fed all the messages in there regardless, which is not good because that completely failed and didn't actually stop for that. So this might get to there now, but it's not going to do what I want it to do. Yeah. Like the offsets. 23. There you go. Let's run that again. Oh, interesting. Message was recovery completed. That's just going to throw anyway. So did this do the same thing again? Is the question. Hopefully not. Okay. But either way, I don't think that's what I can't see in the demo is like, okay, what I've got the thing persistent, right? I can clearly persist the integration event if I choose to do that, right? Recover the state, right? Um, Now, if the user state, if the finite state machine state was that way, then I can see this working. In that I could kind of use the finite state machine to determine whether I've received more events or messages, etc. Maybe that does what I wanted to do. But maybe I just have to accept that I can't find enough information about this to, or I need to completely understand it. But I've looked around and there's not even that many courses on it either. So what's my alternative? Again, I could do it with Kafka now, but the problem with doing it with Kafka now means that I have to then accept there's going to be a lag the moment two people use the system. If 10 people use the system and make any changes, the lag just increases because the changes are going to go through here, right? So those integration events, yeah, the view will get updated, the changes process would run, but those messages are now based upon how I partition this data. So the beauty of this is I don't care about the partition size if I'm doing it with Akka here because I'm gonna pull them straight out and process them, and it's on me to change them as far as this consumer's going. So the scale out is actually at this level rather than this level. I don't need to concern myself with that. Ultimately, the ViewDB, I might have to partition that data and have multiple consumers running to get the data to get updated quicker. Maybe I can partition that more strategically though. That does actually beg a question from a design perspective, right? So Kafka partitions are how you scale out Kafka. The strategy with which you do them then influences how they're consumed. But you can't partition them differently for different things. So it actually means that your partition choice, your strategy for partitioning actually has impact on anyone consuming it. But the purpose of, I mean, the benefit of Kafka topics is they aren't one-to-one. They can really empower the system to just be distributed. Hmm. So am I missing a term? Am I missing a concept with Akka? Or am I missing a technology? Is there another technology that's suitable for this? Where I can parallel process .NET libraries for processing. Um, Problem is, it's an overloaded term as well. I'm not, I'm not parallelizing very much here. Um, remove them. I'm deliberately just trampling over everything I've done so that I don't leave anything lying around. Gemini. Using Akka.net, how do I ensure I don't process a message for the same entity while one is being processed? Stateful actor with a mutex. Define a variable within your actor state to store the currently processed entity ID. Selective discard to handle cases where the mailbox becomes full. Implement receive method before. So stateful actor. They don't have that. Now, again, going back to the concept before, not necessarily the mailbox, but the inbox. Again, is this documentation lacking somewhat? Receive actor. Send messages. Receive. Unmatched, receive any. Reply, receive timeout, stopping actors. Hot swapping actors, message loop at runtime. Initialization patterns. Initialization via message passing. There are cases when it's possible to pass all the information needed for answering initialization in the constructor, for example, in the presence of circular dependencies. In this case, the actor should listen for an initialization message and use become. Receive. It transitions the state. Okay. I get it. I get that. Ah. Well, again, the concept of an actor being stateful is Horn, how are you doing? How are things? What came to me then was this concept, maybe that when I receive the first message, I then become, for that actor, I become ready, but then I need a timeout. And then so I kind of shift to a state where I can receive other events for the same type. Maybe that's something there. Good, just coding, adding in world selection of agents and entities. Nice. Nice. I hope I didn't were you gonna stream tonight? Because you do stream on Sundays sometimes, right? I was trying to look around before I hit stream to see if there was anyone streaming that I could hang out with, and there was no one on. And I was like, I need to, I need to focus. So I fired up the stream. Nope, I did yard work and kill my elbows with all the weed pulling. Oof. Yeah, I gotta do that this week sometime. Rain prevented everything today. Hmm. I'm trying to figure out if I can have a kind of stateful actor that understands messages of the same type or the same identifier. I'm just like, I'm struggling with. Must be unique given an entity in the journal. Message replaying is a persistent actor must have an identifier that doesn't change across different actor incarnations. The identifier must be defined with a persistence ID method. That seems like it's the right idea. I just don't know how to build it. She's driving me crazy because I'm like, am I committing my brain power to something that I can't actually achieve? Am I thinking about this in the right perspective, or do I just need to do the really dumb thing, but know that I've got all this work coming down the line? I kind of want to do the work up front to prove it, to prove that I can deal with to at least be able to deal with this situation as quickly as possible. Um, but in the same, I don't want to spend weeks spinning my wheels trying to achieve something that's actually impossible with this framework. But it feels like it should be possible. Um, in order to implement the pattern known as command sourcing, simply persist async all incoming messages right away and handle them in the callback. Actors, routers with router. Routing would make sense. Dispatches would make sense. Dispatches are responsible for scheduling all code that can run inside the actor system. Dispatches are one of the most important parts as they control the throughput and timeshare for each actor. So routers can be used inside or outside of an actor, and you can manage the routers yourself or use a self-contained router actor with configuration capabilities. You can also resize dynamically under load. Akka.net comes with several useful routers you can choose right at the box according to the application's needs. This would make sense. A router would work if I could figure out this, because then I could route to the same actor instance, and then I could combine that with the persistence. But again, am I using the right thing there? Consistent hashable envelope to define what data to use for the consistent hash key. Sub message, consistent hashable, consistent hash key, return group ID. But that's not going to do, that's just going to send it to a type, right? Broadcast kill. So that's not, routing isn't going to help me there. Mailboxes, no. IO, that doesn't matter. Inbox, again, it's just popping them in there and then I can kind of watch them. But that's not really going to help me. Finance state machines, again. I'm not transitioning this data, right? I'm trying to make a decision on this data. I'm trying to say, okay, you have a you have oh, hold on. What happens if I do this? Receive actor receive integration actor is a untyped actor for right a second. Demo. No, CTOL. Receive. So what I'm thinking is, I will it spool up? I think I can't get my head around the fact, does it create an actor per message, right? So if it creates an actor instance per message, are they unique? Right. So if I receive an event, this actor is working on something, and then it goes into a state of waiting. Then I receive the next event. I can't dispatch to the same actor, so that next event has to go in here. So I only get one actor. So why does the original code fail? In that it's let's do this. Receive messages, integration, event, message. takes a T event, event, so record, where T event is my integration event. So this is receive integration event message. See, that's the mess there. Actually, it doesn't. Well, just need that. Don't care about the rest right this second. Message goes to so one of the things I was thinking about is, okay, well, I could become a different state, right? I could say, okay, well, now it moves to happy, so then when events are received, they'd have to be the same type. But the problem with that is then the actor wouldn't without a state, the actor wouldn't do that. So what I want to see now is, okay, well, I remember the initial flow. How do I demonstrate to myself what that hold on. What happens if I do this? Private read only period actor identifier equals good. Right. And then we do this dot write info actor identifier received message dot event dot as I integration event. Let's just make this even harder. Identify event ID. Of course, I don't need that either. Event ID. Integration event, I event. What's the level up from that? There is nothing above that. I don't know anything more than that. So, but either way, this should at least tell me enough. So we can do that. I can do that. That's receive integration actor. Receive integration actor. I suppose one way of doing this would be to create an actor per event. But again, I then would have to look it up, and that's the problem. Right? Can I do that? Can I get the name of the actor based upon the event I'm dealing with? That's not going to work very well. Consumer groups, lag. Okay, that's still got the lag, so that should actually work. It's unhandled. Oh, because I didn't wrap it, did I? In here, I just passed the event. I need to do a new integration, event message, event. It doesn't care. That's worrying though, because it means that it actually processed all the messages. Come on. Come on. Update offsets. There you go. There you go. So I wonder if I name it, does that do what I think it should? Yeah, see, that's the same instance of the actor. Now, these are all different events. These are event IDs, so they're going to be unique. But the same actor received them. But the problem is if that actor goes off and does something else, right? If that actor goes off and uses the data store, let's see. So if in receive, um, um, entity exists actor. This is a untyped actor on receive. If message is the problem there is I don't have the type. That's going to get really tricky because I don't know about identifier, etc. So let's just go with receive planning item. Let's do data store. Data store. So we're going to inject our data store in here. If so var exists equals data store dot get planning item dot where p goes to p dot identifier equals identifier goes to default sender dot tell. Hey Mojo, how's it going? We're gonna do exists message record. But I just got back home from a local comedy show. Oh, nice. Exists. So in here, I'm gonna say, was it funny? So we need to inject the actor system. So we learned this before. Once we do async here, things get messy. And then we can do async here. We can do var exists. And in there we can do message.event. What do I like there? A constructor declared in class. That means I must have made it untyped actor. It was my fiance does stand up and improv, so I've seen both good and bad at open mics. Nice. I could not. That's cool though. I don't know if I could deal with the random comedy. I have a very low tolerance for cringe. So if comedians are telling awkward and messy jokes, I'd feel very uncomfortable. At least at home I can fast forward through stuff. Which means I made this an untyped actor before. And then that became the receive method. But how did I do this before? Um, receive actor. Must have done it. Oh, dude, open mics are full of cringe. Yeah, I don't like if exists. Um, this dot write info actor identifier entity exists. If message dot event is planning item integration event. If not exists. My fiance performs with and at more progressive venues, so the cringe is minimal. Yeah, good. Yeah, it's like I have a sense of humor. I just sometimes I just like to be able to go skip, skip, skip. And audience participation always is no uncomfortable. I guess I have I don't know whether it's empathy or whatever it is, but I just feel for the people being targeted and stuff. I just don't feel comfortable for it. Although I think hecklers get what they deserve. Because I think if you're brave enough to stand up there, you should get some props. Okay, so that's reset again. Did you I think I saw that you did message. I have gotcha. I was just looking at the messages because I've got stream mode on. I don't see the Discord messages, but I noticed you were saying something before. Um, yeah, the Aspire stuff. Um, it was I spent about an hour messing around with that to just try and get it to run, and having I was stuck on it. It wouldn't get when I checked it out. You had projects dot whatever working fine, and I see that that's their example. You had it working just fine, but on my machine when I pulled it out, it was like, nope. So I checked my .NET version. I was behind on .NET, which I did see it can be very temperamental over, so I updated to .NET latest version, which was just a minor bump. And then I'd updated the workloads just to validate that piece. And then I saw the advice in somewhere that they don't recommend using Aspire.hosting anymore. They recommend using Aspire hosting app host as a separate package. So they must have changed that. And they did the same thing with semantic kernel. Their APIs and stuff changed quite drastically between their release candidates. So in that, they moved that behavior and renamed some of it into other places. So they broke out of the library for app host as a separate NuGet package when they went to release that it wasn't previously in. It was in the hosting library originally. So let's see what am I expecting to see here? So entity exists actor. I need to register that. Entity exists, which is essentially that. Entity exists actor. It's pretty much the same thing. So why do that? So receive integration. So what I'm looking to do is see if I get new instances. I don't think I should. Because I think I'm asking for the exact same actor, but I'm not. This dot right info exists actor identifier check for so this is receive. So I guess what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to say, hey, well, so event ID is a unique identifier attached to every single event that I'm passing through. So let's have a look and see what this does now. So I guess I'm trying to see if this changes. If this changes and I get new instances of the actors, that'd be pretty cool to understand. If I'm getting the exact same actor, how is it processing that information then? Because they're all happening at the same time. Date time. Let's actually do this. Let's go into here, write info, and put in date time dot now dot UTC now. Let's go in with the most. What's the most granular I can get there? Oh, I suppose that's the one, right? The ISO format gives me the most. Okay. Just in case I put in the others. That would be bad. Does Rider always have a new update every day? It might be Copilot specifically, but I just want it to be up to date. I was getting irritated the other day. The Copilot update seems to get, or the plugin seems to get updated almost every single time I start this computer up. And it's really frustrating because it requires restart. And sometimes if I've got, because I have Rider, WebStorm, and DataGrid open, and Copilot's installed in all three of them, sometimes it'll conflict and not want to update. So then it keeps saying, hey, I've got an update. So it's really frustrating. They need to come up with a inline method of doing that. Okay, so what I'm looking for here is different identifiers to appear. Am I getting the same actor? Am I getting the one actor that manages to process everything in? It's the same actor ready. Receive for event. The same actor processes everything. Yeah, that's the most frustrating experience so far, Rider, because the Copilot update does not want to. There's no inline update of it or anything, so they need to figure that plugin out. Um, I do run the toolbox, yes. Yeah, I do run the toolbox. So why did that error then? Message planning item integration event from to entity exists actor was not delivered. I don't know. I'm not running the toolbox. I was running if the toolbox would solve the issue. No, no. It literally is just the plugin gets updated so frequently. And the version is increasing. It's just they update this plugin all the time. I don't know what their problem is. Don't know what their problem is. I don't have any issues with that stuff. Copilot chat works fine if I want to use it. I don't use that very often. Um, yeah. So it's working. It's just a pain in the backside. um, it's failing here. This login can be turned off or adjusted. Was not entity exists actor. Did I not call it this? Did I not call it the right thing? I bet I didn't call it that, did I? That's the actual problem. I bet you I called it entity exists or something like that. Yeah, there you go. That's why that failed. So I go back here, go back in here, update offsets, 182. There you go. Let's run that again now and see what happens. There we go. But either way, what's apparent is each actor there is getting its own thing. So there's only one instance of the actor processing the messages at once. So how then do I get to receive, exist, receive, receive, receive? How do I get 3 receives in a row before the exist check for the first one has happened? Right? How does that become a thing? And actually, A4. So there's the check happening. So this event, there's the check happening, and there's the actual check. There's the actual thing. So the sequencing thing, blah, 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 blah. The sequencing of these is all over, but I do only have two actors. It's like they're being. How do I get my head around state here? I don't know. This is what feels like this should be possible. So you get one instance of the so down in here, right? Yeah, the exist actor, and then up here, let's do this. That that way I can do. You can do that. Right. So now they're all the same. But I mean, it's not going to tell a different story. That's the problem. So some addresses. Use it. So they name the actors, right? So the actor refs are always named something. Worker one, remote. Unique path obtained by following the parental supervision links. I'm wondering if I can actually. No, I'm not using the hierarchy. What is Akka used for? So Akka could be used for. Um, Akka can actually be used to kind of do the distributed nature of my application, right? So it is an application framework built for scale out for um, an actor concurrency library. Yeah. So the problem is I always struggle when it comes, and even in trap, by the way. My apologies for disappearing from your stream the other day. I unfortunately had to go do something quickly. Um, Highly concurrent and parallel systems. Yeah, the problem is that I always have the issue with the actor thing because to me it's like I don't quite get what that actor means, and I'm trying to get my head around those pieces. I'm starting to question. I'm starting to question how I'm going to land on this solution. Oh, ads have started, so I would assume we'll just stick behind them. Simply a thread of execution. Put you back. Threads of execution. So what I've got to get my head. So I think that what I'm trying to do is plausible in Akka. And the reason I want to focus on this is again because I want to make sure that I don't want to scale out the Kafka consumers just to process more threads of change transactions. Um, Imagine you could spawn thousands of cheap threads. Yeah. Hey, TT, how you doing? So to me, again, Akka is something that I've used briefly before. I've achieved some success with it, but right now the way I'm approaching this, I'm not sure is the correct way. Um, but it seems to make more sense to me than it does to create multiple Kafka consumers, right? Because again, if I go back to my little pictures, right, to scale out Kafka here, I need to introduce more partitions. So to get higher throughput on my changes, then I'm going to have to create multiple instances of the same service just to consume the events to process them through. I'm doing this here so that it's disconnected from the main data store. So data is stored. There's no extra processing involved in it. It's just as here's the data as it stands now. It's more reliable that way. And then I can publish the integration event and use that in changes. Changes can then be responsible for saying what is the delta between these two objects. The challenge is if I have 5 messages for the same entity, I need to make sure that I process. You can't think in terms of processes or threads. That's too coarse. It's like the ultimate microservices. So okay, so we can change my way of thinking if I can get my head around that part, right? Um, but again, the actual workload here doesn't seem too high. It is a if it was processing one event at a time, I'd be fine, right? I could get the throughput, um, and the processing would be relatively simple. But the fact that I could receive 5 different events for the same entity, and I need to take a simple web server. You have an actor accepting on the socket, then processing will be spun off as a new actor, and the state will just be given to it on spawn. So, okay. Well, in using their terms, that request would be more ask, right? Be asynchronous. Answer the cheap, so you just spin them off for work. Right. But if I receive 2 events, I don't want them stepping over each other. 2 events for the same entity. Can I do that? But if they're independent pieces, because I mean, what I want to do here is very simple, right? I want to say, okay, um, uh, they are related in as much as they are for the same entity. So if I have a planning item and I change the projects to the planning items associated with, right, that's triggered an event. If my system isn't up and running for the Kafka for the changes piece, and I go applying events in Akka, right, that's another event, right? So those two have triggered two changes in my system. They're independent. They'll both have triggered integration events. They are ordered, and Kafka will guarantee they come out on the same. In practice, is this to handle 2+ users changing a planning item? It's to deal with the fact that I do not want to be single process on handling this, or how do I better put it? It's not so much about 2+ users changing the same item. It's 2+ users changing items. Any item. It doesn't matter about the same planning item or otherwise. The system needs to be able to deal with, oh, I've got a bunch of events. Kafka will kind of guarantee the ordering for the same ID. Even if I do partition it, the same ID would get put in the same partition repeatedly. So Kafka will deal with the message ordering to some respect there. The problem is when I actually ran this, I didn't see that order respected, right? So I got if I tried to process, I scaling out the database and the APIs together. No, the way this is built is I can scale independent components, right? And I can. The databases don't all need to be large databases because they'll be sharing the load of the requests, right? The APIs might need to increase, but that's not the challenge here. The challenge is when I change the items that an integration event fires then, right? So there's an integration event in here now. You see lag 2, right? So those are the 2 events I just created. So there's the first one, right? So the attachments, and you can see that had still said testing more things, and then I added associated projects on it, right? Hey, Akka 666, how you doing? And then this one changed to applying events in Akka, but still had associated projects, right? So the change 1 comes, and that changes these associated projects changed. Change 2 comes, and the title changes, right? So what I want to publish from here is title changed and associated projects were changed, right? Because again, notifications should care about that. So in this changes piece, I want to say, okay, well, I've received a change. If two items were changed at once, or 2 different items from 2 different users were changed, this would receive them and deal with them, right? But what I'm trying to deal with is the fact that it might happen that I have events backed up, because again, if this system is brought offline for maintenance and then brought back up, a bunch of events, even for the same thing, could have occurred in that time, right? I want to process them. Similarly, if one event has been backed up, I still want to process that and calculate the changes and then fire this out. So all this is going to do is say, okay, well, ultimately, does it exist? And there is yes, then we calculate changes from A to B. If it doesn't, right, then publish new, right? So we publish an event that says this is a new entity. So the notification comes out, new planning item created, right? And that's that. So it's very simple what I want to do in here ultimately. This is going to be the most expensive part. The problem is though, if I receive two messages, and what I just experienced was the ordering of these things is off, even though I only have two actors. And again, I think that's kind of what you're getting at, Trap, is my way of thinking about this is probably off. So the way I'm approaching this is probably off. But I only have two actors, one for the receive and then one for the exists right now. But they're the same ID. I'm not getting a new instance of these. I'm getting the same instance, but they're processing them, and the messages that I'm getting out are at differing times. So it's kind of this probably isn't helping. So maybe I need to change my way of dealing with this. And instead of having this come back here, I need to, this needs to do the, does it exist or not? And then if it exists, it goes somewhere else. And if it doesn't exist, it goes somewhere else. And maybe that smooths this out and I kind of have a tree to go down. A lot of the demos, concepts, actor systems. So that might be my receive, and that's my exist, and that's my not exist. And they're children of. I'm not familiar with what you're doing an Akka to comment at the moment, but I'm not sure it makes sense to have different actors, different checks if that is what's going on. Yeah, so again, I think my understanding of Akka is quite understood from the actor model because everything is an actor. That's why I struggle to necessarily describe it. So hold on, let's do it this way. I can do it. No, not that way. If I do it this way, uh, that's the problem. They can't be worked. They could be worked on independently, but if I have a backlog of them, they need to be able to be processed, knowing the others exist. Because if they fall out of sync at all, then I could calculate incorrect changes, right? Because the thing I'm calculating the offset, I'm going to store the entity here. The thing I'm calculating the changes off could change mid-event, right? Well, not mid-event. They wouldn't change mid-event. But I could load them up. Could I? Let me do this then. Maybe it'll become more apparent. An active thing processed. So in this case, I'm gonna store. I'm assuming I'm storing the entity, right? So I'm storing the data representing the thing that I'm talking about. So planning item. The integration event is the new data essentially. Um, but maybe I could store more information. Is entirely up um to that. But can on the fly spawn an actor if it doesn't exist for widget X, then for each thing targeting X, you send that to the actor. So that's one of the things I was looking at before is do I want to do it that way where I'm actually spawn because right now I think I'm kind of reserving the because this is the example that's given by the code is I'm registering the instance of the actor and I'm retrieving it by its name, which means I'm getting one copy of the actor. Still had the idea of putting the dependency resolver down there. But do I need that? So now let's remove the entity exists actor, right? I may post some blog posts to the Discord about Microsoft and Twitter using actors. Yeah, more than welcome to. But this is one of those things where at some point I have to realize, am I getting any benefit? Am I risking too much trying to take on a technology that I have barely any real understanding of, right? I know what I've seen it do, and I believe it can solve the problem I'm trying to solve for here, which is I don't want to scale out multiple services when I don't need to, right? Because the processing cost here isn't that high. I'm not trying to do any crazy calculation in this. So I don't scaling out Kafka consumers for this challenge is not something I need to do. I do need to get higher message throughput because there will be more messages coming through this than anything else. And then whatever actor has that name is typically just processing the incoming messages and may or may not spawn other actors. Uh, publish new actor that goes at the actors level and update existing. Okay. Unfortunately, I have to go. But I think what I'll try is I will try this receive, and what will happen is I'll just do the if exists in here is not null. Then I'll pass that down to the update existing actor, right, with the existing whatever. Otherwise, I'll send the publish new. Um, okay. For what it's worth, different Wikipedia actor model theory. It's I get that it's a very powerful thing, um, but it goes into that thing. I've got a technology available that I do know enough about to understand that it probably can aid in what I need to do and give me that scale out when I choose it later on, without that much effort from what I've seen and the demos I have seen. But the problem is the examples that are out there, the ability to walk me through it, I don't know enough, right? So do I pick a less robust path with more cost in terms of scale out, etc.? So I think it's worth digging through. I think it's worth trying to figure this out and see what it's like before I go to the, oh, well, I'll just use Kafka and scale out as I need. Because I think that doesn't necessarily solve the problem as is. But unfortunately, I do have to go. I have to finish up. So I'm going to continue doing this over the next couple of days, see how far I can get with it in my evenings and whatnot. Let's see if I can figure this out. We'll see how we go. I'll probably make. I'm going to post in the Discord, but I'll probably make Friday or Saturday the Q&A day. It'll be either early on Friday morning or sometime on Saturday. So I'll post to see if anyone's got any ideas on that one, and we can go through that. And this sort of stuff is the sort of stuff that's worth talking about, how people's experiences. So thank you very much for coming hanging out with me. Appreciate it very much. So I'm just going to end because I've got to get off. So I'll hopefully see everyone tomorrow. Take care all. Good night. Thanks.